Greetings, YouTube. There's been so much discussion on so many platforms, from YouTube to the forums, etc., about burnout. It's a real problem, and I think several people have spoken at length as to why it's a problem, and that is not the purpose of today's video. The purpose of today's video is to do what I like to call solutions-based suggestions, because a problem is only a problem until you have a viable solution. And I, for one, don't want to be a channel that just complains but doesn't offer any constructive suggestions. I don't want there to be burnout. I mean, I think to a certain extent, burnout is inevitable on any game, but there are ways to mitigate it to where you don't have some of the same reasons for the burnout that you do right now. And that's not just at the quote-unquote in-game level of the community. That is at all levels. And one thing that still makes me so bummed by Kabam's response to this is, even though they've had some progress made in terms of some of the forum posts that they've put out regarding even changes that they're now going to make to Act 7 based off of what some of the feedback was from the beta, they aren't talking more about the biggest issue, and that's that this is a casino. The Marvel Casino of Champions is a legalized casino that offers gambles for champions that you get almost no chance at. Even looking at this 6-star Electra crystal, let's just say Electra was the champion that I was seeking in order to really make my roster. I have a 1.32% chance to get the 5-star and a 0.31% chance to get the 6-star. And of course, that is if I'm Cavalier and even have a chance to buy this crystal, which so many of you out there aren't yet at that progression level. So there are certain things that they still can do when it comes to crystals, and I talked about eventually making Nexus crystals for purchase. There have been some crazy suggestions for Nexus crystals. I have seen on the forums people saying that Nexus have to be at least 30 to 40,000 5-star or 6-star shards. I think that is such an unreasonable request. But an honorable mention, because that request came from none other than everybody's favorite Grounded Wisdom. So an honorable mention, not in my list of 5 things to improve the game, but it's the first thing we're going to talk about. I would totally kick Grounded Wisdom, and for that matter, that guy Working in Progress, off the Kabam forums. They're just PR lackeys that do nothing but defend the company, but to the point that there are so many, like, it's one thing if a jerk comes in and is just blatantly disrespectful. That person deserves to not make comments. But most of the people that I'm seeing that send me screenshots of Prof, is this really worth getting banned from the forums? It's just constructive feedback. There's no cussing. There's no attacking. It's just, hey, this is a problem that I've been running into. Could you address this? You've talked about wanting to on different threads that have been closed, and that still gets people banned. And then often you have these Grounded Wisdom and Work in Progress individuals that just do nothing but defend Kabam. And it's really like, you think to yourself, they've got to be on Kabam's payroll, right? I mean, there's just no other way around it. The average summoner who plays this game every day and faces both accomplishments and challenges would not have that ratio of just like unconscious level of defense. But let's talk about the first big thing. And I've talked about this before, but not in quite some time. And that is when we talk about Alliance Quest and Alliance War, I just want to point out that the reason why this is so stressful to so many people, and the reason why people feel like they have to take a risk to share account information, is that if you are in a no-service area, which, trust me, Oklahoma has plenty of those, and or also if you're in a position where you are with your kids or you're at a movie or whatever, you can't move. You can't log in. And so you either feel like you have to go against the terms of service and share your login information to your alliance mates to move for you, or you tick off your alliance because they need you to move to clear your nodes so that you unlock them, and you can't. You know when this changes quite often? It's when they move the hour alliance timers to 30 minutes. It is such a huge quality of life improvement that it makes the game more fun, and it makes it far less stressful to especially do these more advanced maps. And of course, this also factors into Alliance War. So the first, make MCOC better and burnout less likely to happen, is to make 30-minute alliance timers permanent. We have only seen this when the game has crashed and they've really made maintenance go into it too much to where they're forced to do this. But if you want your players to have a better quality of life, that is such a simple thing to do, and yet the payback on less burnout would be repaid 1,000-fold. There have been some suggestions about the next one, and I get it's a little bit of a controversial point because Kabam knows for the economy to run in the game, Alliance Quest maps have to cost a decent amount. But what Kabam has done by jacking up the prices so much on these Alliance Quest maps, especially map 6 and map 7, is that they're forcing alliances to feel like they have to do the dirtiest non-kept secret in the game, and that is to do resource droppers for shell alliances. This is such a huge issue, and yet people don't want to talk about it because it's just kind of the only reason why these in-game players who do the highest tiers of Alliance War still do it, because shell alliances technically can still exist. If top-tier alliances don't have those Alliance Quest costs for those maps, and you make it still based off of skill versus resources, then there's no need to swap shells so donation droppers can go in for 8 days if maps were free. It just eliminates that whole underground issue that is going to be there for the rest of time at this point. And that also would mean that free-to-play players wouldn't have to grind the arena for donations like they currently do, which is also a huge strain on their quality of life. Keep in mind that this has a chance to do away with a ton of the arena bot issues as well, because resource droppers wouldn't use them if they can't sell their goods, because their goods aren't worth anything anymore, because you don't need them to justify the costs of the Alliance Quest map. So it takes away several problems in one solution. I get that maybe you couldn't make them totally free, but there at least needs to be such a reduction to where shell alliances and bots lose so much of their power. The next thing I want to talk about is the issue of what we have discussed regarding the limits and the coding and the time for a Cavalier event quest. So let's just assume that that's not going to be in the cards for the rest of the year. And I think Kabam Mike has kind of hinted that that isn't really realistic at this point. So when we go to event quests, let's just discuss, and certainly the difficulty has gotten a lot worse. But currently, these rewards are so pathetic, especially compared to the Glory Store, which gives you up to half of a Tier 5 basic, that it's just often not worth, if you don't have the skills or the roster, it's not worth sinking 1,000 plus or more units worth of revives and potions to clear it, even to just complete it, nevertheless explore it. And so I think at minimum, you should make the 6-star shards 2,500 for this, but I think, maybe this is me being too greedy, it should be at least 4,000. 4,000 6-star shards per month, and the Tier 2 Alpha, I think it's got to be half of a Tier 2 Alpha. I think it's got to be the same thing that you're given Glory Store. I think between completion and exploration, it's got to be 22,500. And I should say not have a Tier 2, I should say Tier 5 basic. Tier 2 Alpha, I think it should be a fully formed Tier 2 Alpha. So I think it should be 36,000 Tier 2 Alpha Catalyst Fragments and 22,500 Tier 5 basic Catalyst Fragments. 5-star shards, it should be a complete, fully formed 5-star crystal, 10,000 5-star shards. Just think about how easy that is to get right now in rifts if you have the right amount of luck. And then at least 40%. In a dream world, it'd be 50%, but I don't think that's realistic. And then more chances for everyone's super thirsty 5-star signature stones, including some generics for exploration. So if you're not ready to put the Cavalier designation on the monthly quest, I get it, but these rewards need to be buffed. And the thing is, the difficulty has been buffed, but the rewards haven't. And so it's just total BS. And it feels like a waste of time and energy for so many people, especially because you can't even get units in this difficulty. Speaking of which, you also need to update Alliance War crystals. Having 3-star arena boost in them is a total joke. And so you really need to think about doing that, especially if you consider that 5-star 6 stones at least should be the top prize. Let's talk next about Alliance War global nodes. I have heard from so many people that is really the number one reason why they're quitting. And it's not even just the flow global node, even though that's been addressed separately. It's just, it made it so difficult and so stressful that alliances became, like, these are friends who've been playing together for years. They became enemies, and the alliances just dissolved. It was too much stress, and it wasn't fun. And I think that this has been a experiment, and it's worth trying. But even though I don't do Alliance War, I think from the messages that I've received, more people dislike the global nodes than like them. I get that a minority still love them, and they're going to disagree at this point, and that's fine. But that's something that I think needs to be addressed. All right, the final point that I want to discuss is something that I think is one of the best parts of what Kabam has done in 2020, and that is something that can be built on not just for Act 7, but future content in terms of like new variants even. Incursions, if you haven't tried it yet, the reason why it's not overhyped is that you get to choose hacks and you upgrade your champions off of choice. I look at the hacks kind of like Nexus abilities where you get certain options and everything else goes away, but you get to choose one and it lasts for a certain amount of time. But regardless, if you use the incursion hacks for other parts of the game and you gave unique incentive to bring in certain champions, maybe it's small champions, maybe it's robotic champions, maybe it's just it's a kind of champion that you would never think to yourself, okay, I would never rank this person up, even if it's like a Crossbones, right? But I can take them to 565 and I can use them for Act 7, and I know that they're going to fit these one or two paths, and suddenly they're going to become more OP with these hacks by the time I get to the boss than Aegon would be, right? Then Ghost would be. Then so many of these champions that you feel like you have to use or there's no other option. If you use the titles and even the sizes that are built in, similar to how you've done with Variant, but instead of punishing them just by saying have a weakness debuff on them, you're rewarding them by personalized hacks similar to the design of Incursions. You're customizing the gameplay more for players, giving them more options, and giving them more incentive to actually take up their champions that maybe they wouldn't use normally. And so you have the foundation already coded in your game. You just got to take what works in Incursions and take it into other parts of the contest. And then a special shout out, another honorable mention is that if there becomes a time where you could make some parts of Arena auto fight, I get that in theory that kind of takes away some of the purposes and designs of the arena, and it's a risk. You're not going to ever win auto fight death matches. It's just not going to happen. But it would give people a better chance to get resources and grind, even if you're just saying we're going to limit it to the 2-star and the 3-star arena for starters and just make that auto fight. That would give your average player who needs resources an easier chance to get them without having to spend all of their time and attention in the arena as usual. So those were a lot of suggestions, and I don't want this to be a 15-minute video, so we're going to end this here. But I hope that these are discussions that we can have as a community that make this game better. A problem is only a problem until there's a solution, and I have mapped out plenty for you to think about today. Thanks for watching, YouTube. Have a good one, and if you've got other solutions, please put them in the comments below.